Good morning guys and welcome back to I Am Casa. This is Andrea, and on this channel we talk about high-end watchmaking and history and stories. And today we have a perfect fusion of these three elements because we're gonna talk about the 20-year anniversary of the Hublot Big Bang. I guess nowadays we all know the story of Hublot, 1976, Carlo Crocco, and all that. But what about the story of the Big Bang? The watch that made Hublot what it is today, and the watch that saved the brand, the watch that made the brand important, the watch that made millions, and the watch that kind of shaped also a huge part of the culture of watchmaking of the latest 20 years. Of course, it all began with Carlo Crocco in 1976. Why? Because when he first introduced his most famous watch that was known as MDM and that changed its name into Hublot to recall yachting in 1980 in Baselworld, it contained already some of the aspects that are now a key DNA factor of Hublot, the art of fusion. Why? Because the watch was a gold watch, so something classic on one hand, fused with the rubber strap, the caoutchouc strap that made it very much sporty. So you had kind of an hybrid on the wrist, an hybrid that then became what we all know and maybe we all want today in the present market. And in fact, when we talk about sporty chic, that is a term that today we refer to for most watches with an integrated bracelet, I think the true sporty chic was more or less invented by Hublot, as of course a sporty watch may have some sort of twist, making it indeed not classic. And I think this was the point. But let's skip a bit of the story. There's a lot of content on my YouTube channel about Hublot, so go browse for it and go have a deeper dive in the history of the whole brand. The first watches by Hublot were looking a bit like this one, which is my own collection service watch. You have a full reel about it, so again, there's another story, but they were watches looking yet a bit classical compared to what is the Big Bang. It all began years later, almost 30 years later from the foundation of the brand, with the fact that Jean-Claude Biver joined the MDM group in 2004. Jean-Claude Biver was responsible of many successes. Jean-Claude Biver was and still is a genius, both in marketing, in understanding watchmaking, but most importantly in understanding our society and the evolution of it, therefore the new trends and everything that could possibly happen in the future. Jean-Claude Biver joined in 2004, and already in 2005 a new watch was born. It was a 44mm watch, the most emblematic one in gold with a rubber strap once again, but also very similar to this one. This one is the present version from 2025. It's in titanium and it's 43mm, but the first one was in steel, 44mm, but very much similar to this one. As you can see, it's a watch today we're accustomed to because Hublot shaped its identity on the Big Bang watch. While it was a groundbreaking timepiece back then, it was something big, it had layers, it had different finishes, different materials, a lot of contrast in it. It was still a chronograph, but it was something completely unexpected. The world was not used to watches this big, was not used to the contrast in the materials, and nowadays what we see is a beautiful watch, something we all know about, but back then it was something out of this world. So much out of the normal watchmaking that it was highly appreciated, as it was very different, it was playful, it was shiny, it was, a bit show off as well, which led to the, let's say, flourishing of the brand, because the brand made more millions, the brand became popular, the brand expanded a lot, and a whole process began. The first watch in 2004 was, if we look at the lineup today, simple. It had this texturized dial, it was a chronograph, and it was something kind of basic for the Hublot we use today. But then in 2006, they began their marketing side. As we've seen, the marketing side of the brand already started in the 80s because, you know, calling the watch of the kings, and having the King of Monaco and the royalty of Spain and all sorts of people like this wearing the watch was a bit of ambassadorship and was a marketing tool, even though they were clients. Then Hublot and Biver understood the assignment, and they began doing limited editions and collaborations and having the watch on the most important people. Just to name a quick thing, 2006, the all black edition, which was again a lot of play around this concept, and many people began wearing it, like Jay-Z and all sorts of people from the sport, music and cinema industry. But what is even more important is the fact that the Big Bang back then embodied fully the concept of art of fusion. Art of fusion may have not been a slogan that Carlo Crocco used at the beginning of the brand, but for sure it was something that also Carlo Crocco had in his mind and that he really put in all the watches. But Biver understood that this was the right path to set up the DNA of the brand, and the art of fusion was and still is the main theme in Hublot. The art of fusion means materials, means finishing, means also complications sometimes. And because of this, complications that were the start of the actual Big Bang lineup, we have some important dates and some important expansions of the brand. In 2008, the Hublot brand was bought by LVMH, that we all know today very well, and that was the beginning of the big expansion. In 2009, they understood that they could not rely on outsourced movement, so they began with the neon manufacture. They bought back B&B Concept for R&D, and in 2010, the Unico movement was born, which is the movement that powers all these chronographs today, which is a very, very smooth movement. It was an integrated, so no modules, flyback chronograph operated by a column wheel visible by the front of the dial. Therefore, when we have skeletonized watches or just open worked or just see-through dials, such as on this one, we can see the operation, the functioning of the movement very well, which is also a playful and interesting element. And this movement was a blast. So fast forwards, in 2011, the brand was huge. It was present in more than 700 doors all around the world, and that was gigantic and led the way to a lot of collaborations. In 2010, a year before, they sponsored the World Cup of football, which is something they are still doing today and which brings them a lot of visibility. And it all began with partnerships with the most important racing teams, football teams, singers, whatever, you name it. They made it a part of the DNA, and they made a perfect marketing that brought the watch to a much wider audience, even outside of watch collectors that nowadays I think matter less than the wide public, and it's very rare for a high-end brand, I would say. It all evolved. Why? Because they went very deep in this R&D and aesthetic elements, and from 2016 to 2018, they created the MP11 and the Mecha 10, two watches that also bring in a lot of novelty for the brand and a lot of new ideas, concepts and aesthetic. But what's most important is that also the last few years was very, very much into evolution. In 2010, they presented a beautiful watch with integrated bracelet. In 2021, the Sapphire. And back to nowadays, we do have the anniversary lineup. As it is the 20th anniversary of the Big Bang, we see a whole collection dedicated to the Big Bang watch. You've seen some stories and other contents on social media during Watches and Wonders 2025, but I brought you 4 watches from the present collection that can sum up a bit the whole story apart from the bracelet side of Hublot. I brought you my 4 favorite pieces from this year. This one, which is still a limited edition, it's a limited of 500 pieces and it's the most celebrative model because it's really a bit faithful to the original, we can say. As you can see, it has the contrast in the colors. We have this beautiful ceramic bezel with the texture on the sides, which makes it look like it's metal or anything else. We have the texturized dial as well, which is also faithful to the original. This time we have a date, which was not there on the original one, but the classic pushers and the texturized strap, of course, in caoutchouc. And we have a gold oscillating max. This is really the watch that was presented back 20 years ago. Of course, not the exact same watch, but the most faithful to it, and it was the actual celebration of the 20 years anniversary. It's of course a wearable watch, and I think it's also the watch we all associate Hublot with, because I remember back in the days on social media, etc., that loads of people were like rocking this one and posting on social media. Of course, as you understood and as you know, today Hublot is a very marketing oriented brand. Therefore, we can see since the beginning all the royalty being a bit of like ambassadors, even though they were clients of the brand. And nowadays, after all the limited editions with football teams, with a lot of famous people and with a lot of retailers, the brand has made it through in the big crowd of watch collectors, and not only through this very on-point marketing. But this was the beginning. Another piece I really like from this year is this one. We finally have a small-sized Big Bang. Of course, the Classic Fusion is a watch I appreciate, is a watch I think is very cool, but the Big Bang is the watch we all associate with Hublot, and having it finally in 33mm is something super cool. You can see that it is more simple, while it has this green sapphires matching the green rubber strap, but I think it's a super chic size for men as well, and it's a great alternative, in my opinion, to a Classic Fusion. And I'm very curious to see how they're going to develop all this feminine, or let's just say smaller versions area. But the piece I want to focus on is, of course, the sapphire. As you know, Hublot has an internal research and development area that is working on the King Gold, which is their own gold alloy, which is very interesting. So a gold you can almost never scratch. It's a bit matte finished, but it's really scratch proof compared to gold. And sapphire, and they were able finally to create colored sapphires, which led to a lot of creativity, and which to me, as per the current situation, is the epitome of Hublot's horology. While of course the most wearable piece, and the piece I would pick in this selection, is for sure the ceramic 44mm, because it is something truly striking. You can really notice it on the wrist, while this beautiful like marina blue color makes it a super cool summer watch, in my opinion. I didn't have the possibility of showing you all the lineup from the 2020th anniversary, because we also had unique sets with complications, which is a thing that Hublot has been playing with for a long time, and I think it's also the future of watchmaking. So continue doing this, Hublot, please. We love it. And the sets were sold, so I was not able to bring them to you, but I can assure you that they're worth seeing in your life. I want to thank each and every one of you for attending this beautiful talk about Hublot, this beautiful diving back in their history. Please go watch my manufacturer video, go watch my previous videos about the brand. Let me know which one of the 4 is your favorite. Leave a comment, subscribe, follow me on social media, and see you next video.